Welcome to the Sports Lounge with John McCann, and we are back again this week after another interesting 7 days, and some big things have happened. Duke is your national champion in men's basketball. They have won March Madness, which means Kentucky did not win it all. They finished 38-1. They lost in the Final Four game to Wisconsin. Oh, so close. Avery Johnson hired at Alabama. Former Dallas Mavericks coach, he actually went to a final, an NBA final, and he will be the new head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Big hire for them. And we'll also have Luke Robinson on the air later. He is the co-host for the show Sportz Blitz, an Alabama sports show, state of Alabama sports show. So anyway, Duke wins the game. They beat Wisconsin in the national championship game in Indiana. And it was a great game. I got to say, it was a wonderful game to watch because you had guys actually making shots. This was what college basketball should be. This is exactly what it should be. It was very hard fought, but you also had guys, they're playing good defense, and yet at the same time, they were making big shots. And boy, they made some big shots. Just a great college basketball game. And unfortunately, that's not easy to come by these days. Bad call hurt Wisconsin late in the game. Look, the ball went off the Duke player's fingertips. It went out of bounds. Duke was up 5, a little less than 2 minutes left. Duke ends up going down and making a three-pointer, making it an 8-point game. It hurt Wisconsin. But the referees did not have the same angles that we have. That's the NCAA's fault, by the way. We're talking about that TV that they are watching the replay on had to be from 1982. That's ridiculous. Why can we see it and they can't? But anyway, it happened. Bo Ryan, Wisconsin coach, he's all mad about it after the game. He's talking about the bad calls after the game. Honestly, being pretty sore about it. But the fact of the matter is, they got a big call against Kentucky that put them up 2 late in the game. Okay? Wisconsin late in the game in the Final Four went up by 2 because the shot clock had clearly gone off, and they still counted the basket, and they weren't able to review it. And it was very clear. The ball had been released well after the clock hit 0. That was huge. And then you have another foul called later. That was not a foul. The Kentucky guy didn't even touch him. And yeah, they get 2 more free throws, which means 2 more points for them. 4 points in the last 2.5 minutes that really cost Kentucky. But that's basketball. That's what happens, especially in college basketball. Look, the refs are terrible in college basketball. They just overall are. They're not good. They're not. If you've watched any college basketball, you'll know that. But anyway, I want to give a lot of credit to Mike Krzyzewski. He's won, I think, 4 titles now at Duke. That's incredible. He's done a great job. I think he's the best coach in college basketball. He really is. And Calipari, he's great. But Krzyzewski, Coach K, he's been there a long time, and he's done an unbelievable job at Duke. And the honest truth is, he probably would have been fired early if he had started now. With the way that things move and you have to win really fast, he probably would have been fired because it took him a little while before he actually started winning at Duke. But he's had an unbelievable career. And so, Bo Ryan rips the one and dones after the loss, and he blames the refs. But look, Bo Ryan, I think he's wrong about the one and dones. I have no problem with the one and dones. And he's gone after one and dones. Okay? He acts like they don't, oh, well, we don't do that type of thing. Yeah, you do. You try to. And there's no, look, these players are going to play, the one and dones are going to play in the NBA, and if you're a one and done, you're going to be great. You're going to be most likely a great NBA player. You're better off leaving after 1 year. And honestly, I think the rule's pretty silly. And it's an NBA rule. It's not an NCAA rule. You have to play 1 year before you go to the NBA. That was that rule was put in place after LeBron James came in. And he came in from high school straight to the NBA. So anyway, nothing wrong with one and dones. You wish you had them on your team. And Calipari, he's done a great job of utilizing the one and dones. By the way, they lost 7 players. Kentucky lost 7 players today to the NBA, freshmen and sophomores, and they'll reload. But let's be real, okay? Those guys who are that good, they're there for one reason and one reason only. They're there to play basketball. They're not there to get an education. They're just not. Sorry. So you can't fault Mike Krzyzewski and John Calipari for taking advantage of that, because these players are going to go somewhere. Okay, so you might as well be the ones to get them. Because I heard him, Krzyzewski say it on the Colin Cowherd show the other day, or The Herd. He said, look, we didn't really buy into it at first, but then we saw where they were playing us, and we realized we needed them. So the point is, they're going to go somewhere. You might as well be the one to have them. Golly, I really wanted a Kentucky-Duke game. I really did. The ratings would have been sky high. I mean, it would have been one of the best finals ever. And the ratings would have been higher than they've ever been. Look, March Madness is a huge event. And because of the brackets and the betting lines and all that, it's a huge event. The game, the Wisconsin-Duke game, got a 16.9 rating. So, pretty deadgum good. But anyway, it was painful to see Kentucky lose. I wanted to see, I really wanted to see history. I wanted to see 40-0. And some people were like, I hate Kentucky, and I want to see them fall. I want to see them get their hearts broken. Well, okay, I wanted to see history. You don't get, and I don't know when the next time we will get an opportunity to see 40-0. I don't know when that opportunity will be. So, but the thing is, I felt like Duke was going to win against Kentucky if they played in the final, because they're pretty much, Kentucky's probably a little bit better than Duke, but there is no question that Kentucky has had unmeasurable amounts of pressure on them all year long. Calipari, and maybe I said this on one of my shows earlier, he wanted to lose a game. I'm telling you, he wanted to lose. Because he knew that getting that monkey off his back was more beneficial for his team than it would be to keep going and keep being undefeated. But when you lose, you learn that you are mortal. You can be beaten. Okay? And Calipari knew that. But they kept winning, and they kept winning, like you should. And it caught up with them eventually. And I think Duke would have beaten Kentucky in the championship game. I really do. Duke had nowhere near as much pressure as the Kentucky Wildcats did to win this whole tournament. It was all about Kentucky or the field. And if Kentucky did anything less than win it all, then it was a failure of a season. For Duke, it was another Final Four season. Yay, we got to the Final Four. So, it just didn't happen, and eventually Kentucky fell. Luke Robinson will be coming up later. Alabama hires a new basketball coach. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of those dirty and stained carpets in your home or office but hate the high cost most cleaning companies charge? Then we have great news for you. GoPro Carpet Care is the most dependable and economical company you'll find in Alabama. The staff is friendly, professional, and always has the best price. Listen to this. Prices as low as $24.99 per room. Find us on Facebook or call us at 205-337-3590. That's GoPro Carpet Care, where pro is our middle name.
I came to dance.
Welcome back to the show. I was talking about earlier how I really just don't have a problem with coaches taking advantage of the system here. With one and dones, I have no problem with it. They're going to go somewhere, so it might as well be your school, and you're there to win. I mean, you're not there to give them an education. That's what the teachers are for. Coaches, they're there to win. Now, they're also part of their job is to make sure their students or their players are going to class. But coaches are there to win. If you don't win, you get fired. Okay? So, and by the way, the one and dones, a lot of those players are what make college basketball interesting. Okay, Kentucky with their one and dones, some of them two and dones. Yeah, they were the most interesting team to watch in all of college basketball. Who was the other one? Duke. Did anybody watch Wisconsin until they made the playoffs? Not really. So let's just be real about it. Let's not get all upset about it. Nothing wrong with one and dones. They should be able to go to the NBA right out of high school. That's an NBA rule. So, it's funny, Mark Cuban, who is the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, funny that connection with him and Avery Johnson. Two totally different topics here. But he commented on college basketball the other day, and I thought it was interesting. If they want to keep kids in school and keep them from being pro players, they're doing it the exact right way by having the 35-second shot clock and having the same look and officiated the way it is. Just because kids don't know how to play a full game of basketball. So even the rules of college basketball are just absolutely absurd. Get the shot clock down to 25 seconds or 30, at least 30. The game's so slow to watch. Do you know why the NBA is so much more fun to watch? Well, first of all, they're just much better players. Look, people talk about, the NBA, they don't play defense. Yeah, they do. They play defense. Don't give me that. All right? These guys put up shots, and they make the ones that the college guys, the same shots that the college guys put up, and they just miss it. That's the difference. And they have 8 minutes longer to play, too. It's a 48-minute game in the NBA versus 40 minutes in college. But the point is, it's a lot more interesting. You have a 24-second shot clock, and you have to move the ball fast. Nobody wants to see a bunch of guys pass the ball to each other, back and forth. Nobody wants to see that. They want to see scoring. So, I also thought this quote was funny from Mark Cuban. The referees couldn't manage a White Castle. That's pretty harsh. It's kind of funny, though. So Mitt Romney is in the top 0.02 percentile of the college brackets. his bracket for the NCAA tournament, men's basketball, he was in the .02. He predicted the Final Four, the Final Two, and the champion. That's pretty impressive. Yeah, I don't think he put enough money on that. I don't even think he put any money on that. He should have put money on that. Then he'd have been a lot richer than he already was. He still wouldn't have known what to do with all that money. It wouldn't have even hardly added to his income. But that's pretty impressive. Golly. I mean, the top .02, there were 99.98% of the ESPN brackets that were submitted were worse than his. Barack Obama didn't do so hot either. Pretty interesting. It's not going to help him in a campaign, but, at least he can say he almost had a perfect bracket in March Madness. It's a big deal. So we have Avery Johnson hired at Alabama. Yeah, so Greg Marshall turned them down. Some other guys turned him down. But at the end of the day, they get Avery Johnson, former NBA head coach, and also went to the finals. Lost in them. I think it was 2007 or 2006. It was the time they played the Heat and Shaquille O'Neal was there. They lost. But, hey, that's pretty impressive. Guess who his boss was? Mark Cuban. But this is a great hire by Bill Battle. Athletic director at Alabama. You know who he is. Great hire. And look, I'm telling you, I know there are questions on how he's going to be able to translate from the NBA to college basketball. And it's a different game. For the most part, it's a different game. College basketball is mainly controlled by the coaches, whereas the NBA is more about having talent and managing egos. But here's the thing about Avery Johnson. He's going to be able to recruit NBA-type talent. Okay? Guys want to go where they feel like the coach can help them get... The coach knows what it takes to get to the NBA. An NBA-type talent, they do not want to go to schools where they know that coaches are control freaks. This is why John Calipari is being considered for NBA jobs, is because he knows how to manage egos. And he was able this year to get all this NBA talent, 7 guys. That's more. Look, by the way, 7 guys, 7 NBA players on one team. That's more. You got guys that are not starting. Okay, they're 2 players that are not starting. That's how much NBA talent he had. And he was able to manage those egos and play as well as he did this year. They weren't a perfect team, there's no doubt, but they were a very unselfish team. And that's why Calipari, he's going to be able to play, or he's going to be able to coach in the NBA, and the NBA is interested in him right now. You got NBA teams that are looking at him. Will he take the jobs? I don't know. But here's the thing. Back to Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson knows what it takes to play in the NBA. He knows what it takes to to coach players in the NBA. And so he's not going to be as controlling, which is what players want. They do not want a controlling coach. That's huge for recruiting. So Alabama is going to be an NBA-like team. They're not going to be able to beat NBA teams, but they're going to play a more NBA style in the upcoming years, assuming Avery Johnson stays there for a good tenure. So this is huge for Alabama. Huge. I think this matches the Bruce Pearl hire, if not better. I mean, Bruce Pearl's not an NBA guy. So, and credit to Bill Battle, he had to make a good hire. I think he had to make a good hire. I mean, was he going to get fired if he didn't? No, because guess what? The football program's running fine. So, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. But for him to help his legacy as an athletic director, he needed to make a good hire there. All right, well, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about spring practice at Alabama and Auburn. And Luke Robinson, co-host of the show Sportz Blitz, will be on with us. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of those dirty and stained carpets in your home or office but hate the high cost most cleaning companies charge? Then we have great news for you. Go Pro Carpet Care is the most dependable and economical company you'll find in Alabama. The staff is friendly, professional, and always has the best price. Listen to this. Prices as low as $24.99 per room. Find us on Facebook or call us at 205-337-3590. That's Go Pro Carpet Care, where Pro is our middle name.
Welcome back to the Sports Lounge with John McCann. And we've got Luke Robinson coming on in just a second. He is the co-host of the sports show Sportz Blitz in Alexander City specifically, but an Alabama sports show. Luke, how do you compare the Avery Johnson hire to the Bruce Pearl hire at Auburn?
Ooh, interesting question. I'll tell you, I think both guys were probably the right risks for the respective schools to take. I really believe that even if Alabama had fired Anthony Grant like I wanted them to last year, I don't think they would have hired Bruce Pearl, even though I would have been for it. I don't think the university would have done it simply because they're not going to take a chance that the NCAA would frown upon it or would look at it with a weird eye, anything like that. I just don't think that Alabama would have taken that risk. Now, Auburn, on the other hand, I think that they could have taken that risk. I mean, a lot of schools could have, and Auburn was just one of them, and Auburn needed a desperate shot to arm. And Bruce Pearl is a great way to go. I mean, he ended up losing 20 games this year, but I don't think anybody thinks that's going to happen again. Meanwhile, come over to Alabama, and you miss out on Greg Marshall. So I was worried to death that Alabama was going to end up with somebody that was way on down the list, because you could see some of these other teams, like Mississippi State, for instance. They target Ben Howland, they go after him, and they get him immediately. You see Tennessee, they target Rick Barnes, they go out there and they get him immediately. Now, you may or may not love those hires, but they targeted their guys and they got their guys. So, that's who they wanted. So win, lose, or draw. I was worried Alabama was going to end up with choice number 4, 5, or 6, and Dennis Franchione style. Well, I had no idea, frankly, that Avery Johnson was even a potential candidate. I had no idea he was interested in coaching him. Had I known that, and had I known some of his roots, then I would have been a lot more excited about Anthony Grant, I think. Avery Johnson from the get-go. And trust me, that was a true slip. But had I known that Avery Johnson were available and were interested in coaching and known his roots, I would have been a lot more interested in him from the jump. There is no doubt in my mind. Now, I'm not going to lie and say I would want him over Greg Marshall. I would have targeted Greg Marshall first, still, no matter what. But I am thrilled to death at this hire that Alabama's made.
Well, how much do you think, in terms of the fan base, how much do you think this hire gets the fan base interested?
Well, I think it's going to do a lot of good for the fan base and for the university and the interest in the program. If you listen to his press conference today, he hit it out of the park. Just really engaging, thankful, respectful, fiery, enthusiastic. I mean, name a word that's positive, and he was that. And it was right. A lot of fun to listen to. I mean, it was just everything I think he just said everything right. He won the press conference. Now, winning the press conference and winning on the basketball court are two different things, but there's no doubt in my mind, the more I found out about this guy, and this really isn't me blowing smoke, this is, hey, you know, when you start digging into the Avery Johnson background, for instance, you think about, okay, well, he's, you know, is he going to be able to connect with kids here? Well, first of all, he's from New Orleans, and he played in JUCO ball, and he also played at Southern University, where he led the NCAA in assists. I think everybody knows all that by now. But what that tells you is Southern University is in Baton Rouge, so he knows the SEC, and he's from New Orleans, so he knows the South. I mean, he's obviously got the accent, and he's also been a journeyman in the NBA, so he knows about, you know, what it is about keeping your head up, working hard, working through the struggles. He's not a prototypical 6'6" shooting guard with a sweet stroke from outside. He is a 5'10" undersized guard who just wouldn't ever say die. And so he can tell people, like somebody like a Justin Coleman should be able to relate to him very, very easily. Then he goes and he's a coach, and he's successful as a coach for the most part. People who are anti-Avery Johnson want to point to his stint with the Nets. Well, I challenge anybody to have won games with those Nets teams. So I just look at, and he's been an analyst on ESPN, so he knows about the number one network that gets exposure to players. He knows what it takes to get to the NBA. I think that's a huge, huge positive. Yeah. What is there not to like? And then his son was recruited. His son was on the AAU circuit. His son plays in this. So there's so many more positives than I would have liked to hire without knowing a lot of that. But now that I know all of it, I love the hire.
Well, let me ask you this. How well do you think Avery Johnson's NBA experience will translate to the college game? I mean, obviously the NBA is more of a player's game. The college game is more of a coach's game. So how do you think that translates?
I think it translates very well. I mean, that's what kids want to hear. Whether or not their actual NBA talents is irrelevant. They want to hear, hey, I know what it takes to get to the league.
Yeah,
now, and they may not have the talent to get there. But I think that's what everybody playing basketball right now wants to do, is get to the NBA. I don't know that people grow up necessarily dreaming of playing college basketball anymore. And they may end up playing 4 years, and they may love it. But I think every kid playing basketball thinks, I want to move on. I want to play in the league. Whereas you look at college football, I think there are plenty of kids out there who are young, and all they're thinking about is, man, I want to get to Alabama. Man, I want to get to Auburn. Man, I want to get to LSU. And then let the chips fall where they may.
Luke Robinson from the show Sportz Blitz joining me. You know, in your opinion, why did Avery Johnson choose Alabama? Because it was out of left field.
It was a little bit out of left field. There's no doubt about it. But, and so in that regard, you could make the argument, well, Alabama had to settle for somebody that was not necessarily on their radar. I would not use the term settle with Avery Johnson, no doubt. And if I've said Anthony Grant again, I'm sorry. I've done that all day long. I don't know why. Because I really shouldn't, because I've been off the Anthony Grant train for quite some time.
Well, it's from AG to AJ, you know. It's kind of close.
But why do I think he wanted to come back to coaching? Because I think coaches want to coach. I mean, that sounds so silly, but I mean, it's like Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl got back into coaching. He was out for a little bit. Guys just, Steve Lavin, even though it didn't work out in his next stint in St. John's, he did go back into coaching. I mean, coaches want to get back in there, and they want to teach. They want to be a part of the game. There's one thing to be an analyst, and that's a lot of fun, and you can make plenty of money doing that, and it's fun to get up there and not have the pressure, not have the fans on you. But some of these guys, that's what they want. I mean, people don't understand about somebody like a Nick Saban and say, God, he just seems so unhappy. Well, to him, it's not unhappiness. He wants to be out there early. He wants to be studying film. That's what he does. I mean, whereas other people may have to sell for a living, or they may be a radiologist. I mean, he wants to get in there and watch film. And I think Avery Johnson wants to be out there coaching kids and playing basketball. And I don't think it's hurt at all that his son is with Texas A&M, so he's had that whole experience, and it's probably giving him the itch again. So I just think this is what he wants to do. I mean, he's a pretty good analyst. I mean, he's fun, he's engaging, he certainly knows how to hold a crowd, and he knows what to do in front of a microphone. But I think that in the end, he wants to be out there coaching in front of thousands of people. Now, I'm not predicting definite success here. I'm just not going to do that. I think there are some unknowns, but this is a risk. There are risks out there that Alabama's taken recently. You look at Jonathan Taylor, for instance. That risk, to me, wasn't worth it. But I understood why he did it. I didn't agree with it. It was a risk I didn't think Alabama needed to take. This, to me, is a risk you take all day long.
Well, I definitely think, with Avery Johnson, I think the best part of this hire is he's going to get recruits. There's no doubt about that, because it's like you said, they're trying to get to the NBA, and he knows what it takes to get there. And so that's the best part of the hire, I think, in my opinion. Let's talk about football for a second. We got the 8A games coming up in Alabama and Auburn next weekend. What are the two things? Obviously, Alabama's looking for a quarterback. They're trying to figure it out. Auburn, they've got a quarterback in not Anthony. We're on the Anthony Grant. We're on that train right now.
Jeremy Johnson.
We're on Jeremy Johnson right now, and so what are the main things that you're looking for in those two games next weekend?
Well, I'd say for Alabama, the one thing that I'm looking at is the one thing I've been looking for. The quarterback situation, to me, it's the most important position on the team. There's no doubt about it. But I'm less worried about that. I don't know why. I mean, last year, I guess Alabama took Blake Sims, who, frankly, had a fantastic record-breaking season, but I think we all know not a fabulous quarterback. I think the system and the fact that Amari Cooper was there, all those things certainly assisted him in having his type of season. And I think Alabama's proven it can win with, if you just have average to almost above average quarterback play, Alabama can win, based on defense, based on running game. So because of that, I'm as concerned about running back as I am with anything. I mean, Derrick Henry, everybody's talking about how wonderful he looks. That's fantastic. I think he probably does. Well, then I want to see him do it long term. I've seen him have spurts of fantastic games or maybe a fantastic moment. His 2 bowl games, he's been awesome. But I want to see more, and I want to see him on a consistent basis. Kenyon Drake, he is an incredible running back to me. One of the most talented one Alabama's had in a while, and Alabama's had some good ones. Problem is he's coming back from a pretty horrific injury, and that scares me a little bit. Meanwhile, Bo Scarborough is out now. Alfie Tenpenny, Tyron Jones, they're gone from the program. So what's next? Is Desharius Flowers? Is it Damian Harris coming in from Kentucky? And, that's great, 2 true freshmen. Hey, I hope they're good. They're going to need to be, because I think both of them are going to get minutes.
Let me ask you about this. One more thing before we go. How necessary do you think spring practice is? For me, I'm starting to believe that it's really more of a risk for the players to get hurt. Is it one of those things where you think maybe coaches should start cutting down on spring practice, maybe even eliminate it at some point in the future?
I mean, honestly, I think people overreact to that a little bit. I mean, guys are going to get hurt playing football. You don't get hurt doing anything. I mean, I played flag football over a year ago when I tore my Achilles. I mean, there's no contact. I mean, it's just things happen. And I think that injuries are just part of the sport. No, I don't think spring practice needs to go away for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you're a basketball player, you can still play basketball all year long. You can find a good pickup game. I mean, some of the pickup games when I was at Alabama at the rec center were probably as spirited and talented as the ones that they had at practice. Baseball, they have hot stove leagues, and guys can do some stuff, and even maybe you can go to different countries and play tennis. You can play all year long. Golf, you can do it. Football, it's a little different. I mean, you don't get to have that kind of contact. And if you had, let's say, for instance, you didn't go to a bowl game and your last game was Thanksgiving, then you may not play football again if you didn't have spring until the following August. I mean, that's a lot of muscle memory to potentially lose there. And I think that spring is a very good thing. I need spring practice. I mean, as a fan, I want to see it. I want to see some of these guys come in. And I think it's good for the freshmen. And now that you have so many early enrollees, I'm pro spring practice. Alabama has had horrible, terrible luck this year with injuries in spring practice. But while we're making a big deal out of Alabama, has Georgia had a lot of injuries? Has Auburn? Has LSU? I mean, has Texas A&M? I hadn't heard of really a whole bunch of other big names being lost, and it's just
Ole
it's
Miss
Alabama's
has.
turn over the barrel. You know?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Well, Luke, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
All right, buddy, no problem. I'm happy to be on any time.
Luke Robinson, everybody, host of the show Sportz Blitz. Yeah, he comes on here a lot. I really appreciate him coming on. He's a great guest. He has a very good show in Alexander City, and, you know, always gives great stuff. Always gives great stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about spring practice coming up next. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Are you tired of those dirty and stained carpets in your home or office but hate the high cost most cleaning companies charge? Then we have great news for you. Go Pro Carpet Care is the most dependable and economical company you'll find in Alabama. The staff is friendly, professional, and always has the best price. Listen to this. Prices as low as $24.99 per room. Find us on Facebook or call us at 205-337-3590. That's Go Pro Carpet Care, where Pro is our middle name.
Welcome back to the Sports Lounge with John McCann, and we just had Luke Robinson on the show. Always does a great job. Always appreciate him coming on. He's been on here 102,000 times, and we appreciate every single time he comes. Does a great job all 102,000 times. So, you know, we talked a little bit about Avery Johnson coming to Alabama. You know, great hire. Just a great hire. Also, you got spring practice right now. Auburn and Alabama having their A-Day next week. That's also vocabulary for the spring game. You know, one thing I will say, I really do think that spring practice, a lot of it is unnecessary. Now, I agree with Luke and some of the things he said about, you know, you're getting out of rhythm. You can play basketball all year long. You can play baseball all year long. Football is seasonal. But when you're talking about contact, I do not think there should be any contact, or very, very little of it during the spring. Because guess what? You're getting guys injured. Alabama just had Bo Scarborough, and you also just had is Ashawn Robinson, a defensive lineman. I think he'll be a junior. He was carted off the field. Okay, so he was carted off on Monday. So these are unnecessary injuries, and you're getting guys hurt. So I mean, Scarborough has an ACL, and so does Robinson. Key players. So I mean, and look, Alabama's not short at running back. Okay, Scarborough's a running back. I mean, they've got Derrick Henry and they've got Kenyon Drake. But at the same time, especially for teams that don't have a lot of depth. I mean, you look at Ole Miss over there; they've got a ton of players hurt right now. They're trying to recover from last year. You know, you're just getting Laquan Treadwell back. Laramie Tunsil's out until, thank goodness, he can't practice during the spring. You know, so I mean, you're taking big risks by putting these players through spring practice. Now, look, if I'm all for getting the skill part down, learning the system, all that good stuff. But there's no reason to put these guys through physical contact. And there's really only so many hits you can put a player through. There's only so many hits that a player can take in his career. Every hit is a teeny tiny bit you're taking off a player's career. And so, look, I mean, it's a man sport. I get it. And you have to be tough. And I get it. But are you really going to put your players at risk when you really don't need to? They've got 2-3 months before they even go into two-a-days. They're going to forget it all again. So, I mean, I have no problem with them learning the skill, learning the system, improving on their skills. That's fine. But it's one of those things where it's going to take all the coaches doing it or a rule against it. I mean, it's just going to be one of those things where not one coach is not going to just stop doing it, because then he's going to lose a little bit of an edge. But then again, at the same time, if he does, he's going to gain a little bit of an edge by keeping his players healthy. So, I mean, that's kind of a, what do we do here? But, it's going to take a lot of coaches starting that trend. I know that it's good for the fans. The fans get bored in the winter and summer and spring months. That's fine. They need something to get excited about, and that's fine. I get it. But you'd also rather your team be healthy as well. And I'm just not a fan of spring practice. I'm really not. Especially with there being contact. I mean, a lot of spring, you don't even see a lot of these coaches are not even having spring games. They're just glorified practices. So, switching subjects here, Nick Saban caught a lot of criticism over the past couple weeks over the Jonathan Taylor case. Jonathan Taylor was recruited. He was brought in from Georgia because Georgia had kicked him off the team for domestic violence. And a lot of it was the Alabama media really gave Auburn a hard time when he was committed to Auburn, Auburn was going after him, and all of a sudden he turns around and he goes to Alabama, and everyone's, Nick Saban's giving him a second chance. Oh, what a great guy. And so now he's being second guessed because Taylor was involved in another domestic violence instance, and Nick Saban kicked him off the team. He had a no tolerance policy. He kicked him off the team. I mean, of course. Now, it turns out that the girl who claimed she was hit or whatever it was, she recanted her story. And so she's claiming that she lied about it, and she ended up going to jail for it. And so we don't know if she did it because she was scared or if she was really telling the truth, the truth in the fact that she told a lie earlier. We're not really sure what's true, but Nick Saban kicked him off the team. He's gone. Look, people have criticized Nick Saban for taking this guy. He gave the guy a second chance. A lot of these players, and I'm not saying they hit their girlfriends. We don't know what goes on. I know a lot of them smoke pot. I can tell you that. But we don't know in terms of domestic violence. We don't know what happens. But players a lot of them are given second chances, and they're not angels. They're not. And so if Saban had kept him, that'd have been one thing. But he got rid of him. He took a chance on him, and he got rid of him once things went wrong. And honestly, I mean, is he going to let him back on the team? I don't think he will. And that was just part of the no tolerance policy. And it's very unfortunate if she was making this up, if the girl was making this whole story up, which it appears she was. At least that's what she said she did. It's very unfortunate for Jonathan Taylor. But that is part of the consequences of the first instance of domestic violence that he was involved in. So I don't criticize Saban for giving the guy a second chance. This happens all the time in football. There are a lot of players who have passed. They come from rough backgrounds. And there does come a point where you have to say, all right, we've had enough and we can't have you on here anymore. But I'm not going to criticize Nick Saban for giving the guy a second chance. I'm just not. So there's that. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more about spring practice for Auburn and Alabama when we come back.
Are you tired of those dirty and stained carpets in your home or office but hate the high cost most cleaning companies charge? Then we have great news for you. Go Pro Carpet Care is the most dependable and economical company you'll find in Alabama. The staff is friendly, professional, and always has the best price. Listen to this. Prices as low as $24.99 per room. Find us on Facebook or call us at 205-337-3590. That's Go Pro Carpet Care, where Pro is our middle name.
Welcome back to the Sports Lounge with John McCann. We're talking about spring practice a little bit here. Spring practice is going on all over the SEC, all over the country. And Auburn and Alabama have their A-Day game next weekend, next Saturday. And I really think that Auburn is the team to beat between these two teams this year. I think both of them are going to be really good. We don't really even know who's going to be the quarterback at Alabama. I'm going to assume it's going to be Jake Coker, but I assumed that last year, and I was totally wrong. A lot of people were wrong too, so I wasn't the only one. But we don't even know if this Blake Barnett guy is going to come in and do. Blake Barnett is a highly touted quarterback from California. Could he come in and win the job? We'll see. But still a lot of question marks for Alabama. Alabama's a recruiting machine. They recruit unbelievably every year. Auburn's starting to do the same. Auburn is trending upwards, though. I saw an article on ESPN with Nick Saban, and it's about Alabama. Really, can they stay where they are? And here's the thing. One of the interesting things that Saban said is that players were coming in hungry. Pretty much they were coming in hungry before, and now they're kind of looking to see what Alabama can give them, because Alabama is now the school. It's kind of like when something goes mainstream. It's never as good when it goes mainstream. It always gets diluted and watered down, and so it's very hard to stay at the top. See, Nick Saban has always been a builder, but now he's built it. And so his next challenge is, and it's a big challenge, is to be able to stay where he is. And you've got Auburn. They're the underdog team in Alabama, and they're on the rise. They're the trendy team right now. And everybody wants to beat Big Bad Bama. And so when you're in the maintaining phase that Nick Saban's in, of trying to keep what they have, and Auburn's catching up. Auburn is catching up. When Nick Saban was hired, they were a 6-6 team. Auburn had beaten them 6 years in a row. But Saban built them up really, really fast. They became a powerhouse overnight. Or it took a year for them to do it, but whatever. But all of a sudden, Auburn is, minus the Cam Newton National Championship year, they haven't really been on par with Alabama. Alabama's beaten them most years. And so a lot of 8-4 seasons, which is good for some teams. But then you have the Gene Chizik disaster year, and the program looks like it's falling off. They're 3-9, and oh my goodness gracious. Then you get Gus Malzahn coming in, and he's got them on the rise. In 1 year, he takes them to the national championship game. One of the greatest turnarounds ever. And right now, I think the trend is going Auburn's way. That doesn't mean they're going to win every year. That doesn't mean Alabama's going to fall off the map. But it's evening out. It's evening out. And again, I think Auburn is going to be a little bit better. They've got Will Muschamp as their defensive coordinator now. And, last year they had a great offense, but they didn't have a defense. That's going to change pretty fast. And so I think Auburn wins at home this year, and they're more likely to be in the college football playoff than Alabama. So it's very hard to sustain what you have when you win 3 national championships. It's just hard. And Nick Saban's done a great job of it. People freak out, oh my gosh, they're not going to ever be good again. Well, they still went to the college football playoff this year. They won 12 games. I mean, it's not like they just, ended up in the Music City Bowl. So, people like to freak out, and it's fun. Whatever. But anyway, I think Auburn's the trending team right now. They can always change. But if you're Alabama, Auburn's not your little brother anymore. So look out. Anyway, baseball season's just started. Got the Masters this week. I don't know a lot about golf, but I can tell you Tiger Woods is not going to win the Masters. His career is on the downslope. I'll just say that. I mean, I don't want to be too harsh about it, but yeah, he's not Tiger Woods anymore. Gosh, the Braves traded away all their players, and yet they're 3-0. Only 159 games left. See you in the playoffs. Well, it's been a fun night tonight. Want to thank Luke Robinson for coming on the show tonight. Also want to thank GoPro Carpet Care for sponsoring us. And we'll see you next week.